think I just need to delete Twitter. I have been in that rabbit hole way too much. Like it's literally shaving years off my life watching people just be insane. Yeah, but the problem is it's indicative of what the world is having. Like it is cancer, but it's not misrepresenting like because you're seeing it more and more everywhere else. Like, yeah, it used to just be Twitters where people would get on and just say these outlandish things that made no sense. And you kind of thought, oh, there's like 10 people on Twitter that are idiots. They're just really loud. But now with like Facebook and Instagram and like, well, Reddit's always been kind of that way too, I guess. But uh, I don't know. I'm just seeing it everywhere more and more. Just bonkers ideas. Logic and reason is dead, my friend. I'm sure at some point every generation it feels like this, but I feel like the American experiment is dead. We're just like it's just a zombie corpse that is just treading along until eventually it's gonna fall in on itself, which makes me feel really good about bringing 4 young kids into the world. uh, I mean, I have hope. There's still tons and tons of people that are out there talking about the logic and the reason, but they're so vilified. There's all so many people like us, like me. I'll just say me. I don't want to speak for anybody who like try to apply logic and reason to things, and then if it doesn't come out the way Group A or Group B likes, they both just hate you, and that's where I tend to be. Is like, nope, that doesn't make sense. Group A, don't do that. That's not how the world works. And oh yeah, Group B, that's not right either. And now I am just like, each of them claims I'm the other group. I'm like Group C. Like, I'm not any group. I don't want to be part of any group. It's stressful, man. Then you feel like you should chime in on this stuff, and then you just you try to have some kind of basic conversation with people, and you just get wrecked because you're challenging their religion. It's the new religions is political ideology. I grew up in a religious household, not like strict religious, but we went to church every Sunday, and I've gotten over that, and that's fine. But I still see a place for it in society on some level. Um, all I know, if you go back and watch Patton Oswalt's Sky Cake Religion skit, I feel like you can just replace that religion with politics now. Like, no, my Sky Cake better, right? I mean, it's insane. Like, just take my parents for example. They vote for Trump. They tend to support Trump. They are Republicans. I'm not a Republican. I will never vote for Trump. The guy is batshit crazy. He's not as batshit crazy as some, uh, like Joe Biden, but I'm not going to vote for either of them. But 20 years ago, if you would have asked them if they would ever vote for Trump, who was strictly a New York City Democrat, they would have said no. And nothing has changed with him. He's still him. He just put a different shirt on, a different colored jersey. He changed religions. Um, and you're not allowed to take the mask stuff, for example. It's like we can wax intellectual all day long about, you know, masks and whether they work and putting a piece of handkerchief over your mouth is doing anything. But if you look at the population comparisons between similar populations that wear them or don't, or lock down or didn't. There seems to be no substantial statistical difference between them as far as COVID related deaths go. And if you just bring that up, not saying don't do it, not saying I'm an anti-masker, just saying having the government force us to wear something that doesn't statistically make a difference is kind of weird, then you want grandma to die. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get the world right now. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we are talking like the same religion too. So like if you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, you are like a difference between like, I don't know, a Catholic and a Baptist. You both believe in God and Christ, but you believe it operates very differently. But it's the same religion. You claim to believe the same state as God, but you just want that status God to do slightly different things and operate slightly different. But you're different sides of the same coin. And I've always said the downfall of Western civilization is the lack of personal responsibility. Like, I think it starts there. We've trained kids not to be responsible for their actions, and then they grow up to adults and make their kids the same. And now you got, like, I would say ever since, they call it the greatest generation, but I would say it is the first generation that spoiled the shit out of their kids, which would be my grandparents. They fought World War II. They came out of the Depression as youngsters. And so they know how terrible things were. Like, they had just decades of just completely being shit on. And they came back home and they had tons of babies. And then they get into the 50s where the economy boomed and spoiled the shit out of them. And stopped pushing, certain values. And that's when you start to see the hippies show up. And now we're multiple generations past that of compounding more and more and more. Don't take responsibility for yourself, push responsibility to the government, blame everybody else for your problems, and vilify you're a victim, and like you shouldn't take any responsibility for that. And it's like, that's the fall of the Western world. The Western world is the greatest civilization that's ever existed. Yes, there was problems with it, but it eventually removed slavery. It eventually gave us wealth beyond any imaginable point in other history. It has done everything. But it's all going to go down because the majority of people are religious to the state and refuse to take responsibility for themselves. I don't know. Like, it hurts to think about because it's so simple. it's so obvious that any civilization that has ever gone this route. Yeah, I know this is the meme of, bad times make strong people make good times make weak people make bad times. But that's a really crazy case of history repeating itself. Like, you would think that you would learn that, yes, we have good times, but if we go back and do this terrible we become weak again, then it'll get worse. But we don't. And I fear the collapse is coming on some level. It's hard to tell. There's a good chance it'll all be okay. It'll just look different at the end of the day, but the fact that you can't have a logical conversation about it when there is a collapse and we come back and say, see, we told you so, they'll just say, no, you're wrong. And no amount of evidence, no amount of critical thought, no amount of logic will matter. So at this point, I'm really disappointed that Ayn Rand was wrong. Or at least we haven't hit the point where Atlas shrugs. Because, like, a part of the Atlas Shrugged book is that eventually all the good hardworking people that create all the wealth and the majority of it in the society, because they are the entrepreneurs, they are the business owners, they are the Jeff Bezos of the world, eventually just stop dealing with the government and decide to go away, and society starts to collapse because the people holding it up aren't going to be vilified and stomped on by the government. I haven't read it in a long time, and I kind of listened to it instead of reading it, and I didn't pay a ton of attention, but I got the gist. I probably need to go back and revisit it as well. And I'm not a Randian, I'm not an objectivist, but I share a lot of values with the objectivist. I would consider Ayn Rand and the objectivists very much allies politically. If the worst problem in the world I had was objectivists, I'd be in a really, really good place, right? Because there's a ton of overlap there. If you're a minarchist and you call yourself a libertarian, there's a good chance you're more of an objectivist. I think there's some other differences, but that seems to be the key one. I think if you're all in on libertarianism and you believe in the non-aggression principle to its fullest, if it is an actual principle, then eventually you have to come to anarcho-capitalism. Like you have to. Logic and reason will dictate that, which Ayn Rand refused to believe. She was a minarchist and believed that the state did need to exist in some minimal amount. But you see where that gets you. I don't know. It's a weird world we're in.